Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 99, coming at you on this beautiful Tuesday evening from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you listen to your podcasts and videos on YouTube. Wild to think, since the rebrand, focusing on MMA only, specifically UFC more so than anything. We're almost at episode 100, so excited for the future, excited about today's episode. Just a few fights that have been announced. We're recapping somewhat of a lightweight UFC Apex card that I thought actually over-delivered. And then we are going to talk about some things that I chatted about early in the year. Who did I have as champions at the end of the year? Are they still intact? And then I did some matchmaking for each division, see if the matchups did good, where I missed. And then we will do welterweight matchmaking, as that is the hottest, newest division with a bunch of contenders. So fun little episode today. Again, I'm your host, Shane Gillette. And let's jump right in. So some fights that have been announced. We have Neil Magny taking on Gunnar Nelson in a veteran affair at UFC 318. That should be a good one. I like the matchmaking there. Especially for Neil, you know, he's been thrown about into a bunch of up-and-coming fights. Like, give him a guy at his level, give him an opportunity to get some wins. And for Gunnar Nelson, battling injuries and some time off, I think that's the appropriate match and should deliver a good bout. Then last week we talked about, it was rumored that Patchy Mix would sub in for Mario Bautista. That is official for UFC 316 here in a couple weeks in June. So Patchy Mix, in his prime, ex-Bellator champion, PFL fighter. I mean, did he technically have a fight under the PFL banner? I'm not sure if he did. His last fight was the Bellator Champions Series in France early in 2024, in May 2024. So about a year ago, he had a split decision victory against Magomedov. So a close decision. But his big win was in November the year before, getting a rear naked choke over Sergio Pettis in round 2 and knocking out Rafian Stotts in round 1. But yeah, I mean, the guy's got to be chomping at the bit. He's been trying to get fights. Who knows what the hell PFL's vision was when acquiring Bellator, but it wasn't working out. A lot of guys getting released, thank goodness, because he's, 31, midway through his 31-year-old age. Most guys coming from PFL Bellator a lot older. Now coming in against a certified killer that trains out of the MMA lab here with Sean O'Malley, Kyler Phillips. I'm blanking on his name. McGee. I forget his first name. But he's 31 as well. He'll be 32 in July. Two fighters of similar styles. I feel like a lot of UFC fans just want to put Patchy Mix in the top of the division. I think this is actually the best quality opponent for him at the toughest level. I think if you get him a Peter Yan, a Corey Sandhagen, it'll be a tough night in the office for him in his UFC debut. So I'm really excited to see the potential here. And as Mario continues to, certify his name in the UFC coming off that Jose Aldo decision that he got a lot of flack about. But another debut we'll have to wait on. Kyogi Horiguchi is out of his fight against Tagir Ulanbekov. So insert Azat Maxim June 21st. I don't know if Horiguchi's injured. There hasn't been a lot of details. If they just pulled him out of this to get a different one or what. Kyogi, undisclosed injury. So he is injured. So hopefully we get to see him soon. And then we have Carol Hossa taking on Nora Cornell August 2nd, which will be the next event in the Apex. We get all of June, July, the rest of May. And then interesting news, Alex Caceres, a.k.a. Bruce Leroy, off the UFC roster. Dirty Boxing, which is Mike Platinum Perry's promotion, had announced their stacked card with a lot of ex-UFC fighters. As we get Jairzinho Rosenstrike taking on Devon Schwann in the main event. And then Alex Caceres taking on other former UFC fighter Sadyokov Kakhramonov. We even have Jesse Rose Clark fighting, Phil Haas fighting. So good job by Luis Saldana fighting. Good job by Mike Perry putting in some quality fights. He must be paying pretty well because it seems like that was the issue with Alex Caceres. He was still signed under the UFC banner, couldn't get a fight. Came off a very close decision loss to Sean Woodson where I actually thought he won the fight. But he was in a higher pay grade than a lot of other fighters. I don't think the UFC really wanted to book him against big names to pay him. And I don't think big names wanted to fight him. So I actually remember about this time last summer, I met him before a Journey concert at the Diamondback Stadium. And we were chopping it up. He's like, I've been trying to get a fight because he had fought in May. So he's looking to fight again in summer. And a whole year had gone by. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Dirty Boxing announces their card. So he must just say, I've had enough with the UFC, which is a bummer. Alex Caceres is a stud from his early days in The Ultimate Fighter. The guy is only 36 years old, will be 37 in June. Had beat Daniel Pineda, Julian Erosa, Kevin Kroom, Chase Hooper. Had some tough losses, Sadiq Youssef, Giga Chikadze, and Sean Woodson. Regardless, also on the Ariel Helwani show this week, Clarissa Shields, the champion boxer, converted to MMA, had announced she is done with the MMA after suffering a loss, I guess multiple broken arms in training. She said MMA is too hard. You see the MMA athletes going to boxing doing pretty well, but it is not the same going from boxing to MMA. And then speaking of ex-UFCers, Kevin Lee signing with the PFL. I'm assuming with the GFL fallout, there's a ton of potential for the PFL to sign some ex-UFC named fighters with some pull, and that includes Kevin Lee, so I'm excited to see him compete. But yeah, let's check in and see what had happened, how it's going for my champion predictions. Each year I predict at the beginning of the year who will be the champion in the division at the end of the year, and not even a full year in or half year in. Might as well check up on it since there's no previewing of MMA action or UFC action this weekend with the week off. I had picked Alexandre Pantoja in the flyweight division. That still stands tall. He has the fight booked with Kai Kara France. I thought he would defend the title 2 times. It'll be dicey to see if he does 2 times. I would love to see it though. In the bantamweight division, I had Umar Nurmagomedov. Not saying that that's impossible. He very well could fight Sean O'Malley if Sean O'Malley defeats Merab Dvalishvili. If Dvalishvili wins, I would expect maybe Corey Sandhagen or somebody else to get a chance. So it's not looking very good on my Umar prediction. I thought Umar would beat Merab and then beat Sean or somebody else. Didn't know Sean would get another chance so early. In the featherweight division, I had Ilia Topuria. Did not think he'd go up this year. There was rumblings of it. I'm not going to consider myself a loss there because I would have taken the champ Alexander Volkanovski if I would have known that. In the lightweight division, I had Islam Makhachev. That still very well could be the case, although they are basically stripping him as he moves up. But I do think he'll fight again in the lightweight division this year. In welterweight, I had Shavkat Rakhmonov with the injury. This cloudies this a lot. That'll be dicey. In middleweight, I had Khamzat Chimaev. He fights DDP, so that's definitely in play. Light heavyweight, I had Alex Pereira. Heavyweight, John Jones. Those are still in play. On the women's side of things, I had Zhang Weilei as a strawweight. That's still the case. Flyweight, I had Manon Fiorot, thinking Alexa Grasso would beat Valentina. Manon would get the next shot. So wrong there, and I highly doubt it'll be Manon this year. And then in bantamweight, I had Kayla Harrison. That looks like it should be the case if she beats Juliana Pena in June. And then I had done some matchmaking because I feel like a lot of the times, if you follow me at bowsandtkos, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, I do Matchmaker Monday. And I feel like a lot of the matches I've been booking end up being the actual booked fights in the UFC. I had said, let's book Pantoja, Kai Kara France. That's a done deal. I said, Brandon Moreno, Steve Erceg. That looked dicey because it was originally Amir Albazi. They substituted Steve Erceg. So that did happen. I said Amir Albazi and Tatsuro Taira. That's recently booked. I had Alex Perez against Asu Almabayev. Asu got a different opponent, so I was wrong there. And then I said Tim Elliott and Kai Asakura, which, hey, Tim Elliott should be back from injury. It seems like Kai is getting a fight booked soon. That's very much in play as well. In the bantamweight division, I said Sean O'Malley, Peter Yan. Did not think Sean would get another title fight, but here we are. And hey, a fight with Peter Yan still in play. Corey Sandhagen versus Divison Figueiredo. That just happened. I said Marlon Vera, Mario Batista. That was originally booked until Marlon Vera pulled out due to injury, as we just mentioned. In the featherweight division, I said Ilia Topuria, Diego Lopez. That's not going to happen. Volk versus Mozar Evloev. That should happen now. Yair Rodriguez, Aljamain Sterling. That's in play, although it seems like a lot of people want the Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez fight for UFC Noche, including myself. I said Brian Ortega and Arnold Allen, to be determined. And then I said Josh Emmett and Lerone Murphy, and that happened. In the lightweight division, I took some L's. I said let's book Charles and Max. That's not happening. I like the Dustin fight better. Did not think Dan Hooker would break his hand. I said Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker, which that doesn't seem like that'll be a thing, as Dustin said he's going to retire. I said let's book Justin Gaethje, Mateusz Gamrot. Sadly, Gamrot is fighting Ludovic Klein. I don't think we'll see that. You never know with a win with Gamrot, Gaethje's going to have to fight. And then I said let's book Chandler versus Pimblett. Pimblett had posted see you at the top at that point, and that was the case. Nice little hint there. I said let's book Bilal versus Shavkat. That would have been the case without him getting hurt. That's still potential this year. I said let's book Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena. That's, wait, that didn't happen, right? Or did it? No, because he lost to Bilal. So yeah, that's probably not going to happen now that Jack's a contender, unless Leon gets a win and fights again this year. I said let's book Sean Brady, Joaquin Buckley. That's not the case. Ian Machado Gary versus Gilbert Burns. I was wrong. And Colby Covington versus Jeff Neal. That is wrong. We'll talk about my welterweight predictions coming up. I said let's book Khamzat versus the winner of DDP and Strickland, and that was the case. I said let's book Kyle Baralhio and Marvin Vittori. I was wrong. Let's book Paulo Costa, Roman Dolidze. I was wrong. He's fighting Roman Kopylov. Excited about that one. In the light heavyweight, we all kind of assumed Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev. That did happen. I said let's book Alexander Rakic versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. I would love to see that fight. Hopefully that's next for these two. I said let's book Nikita Krylov, Dominic Reyes. That happened. And then I said let's book Volkan Ozdemir, Robert Whittaker. I was wrong. In the heavyweight, I said John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, to be determined. And then I said Cyril Gane would fight the winner. Cyril Gane hasn't had a fight booked. He seems like he's going to wait, especially after a very close decision victory over Volkov. And I booked Volkov versus the winner of Blades, Rizvan Kaniev. That fight never happened, so we'll see. And then Derek Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa 2, I was wrong. In women's MMA, I said let's book Yan Xiaonan and Virna Jandiroba. That happened. Let's book Marina Rodriguez versus Tabitha Ricci. I was wrong there. Let's book Valentina versus Manon. That happened. Grasso versus Blanchfield. And Barber versus Rose Namajunas. Blanchfield and Barber are fighting. Those could be their next bouts, so maybe it'll happen. I said let's book Natalia Silva versus Caitlin Sermonara. I was wrong. Andrade versus Viviane Araujo. I was wrong on that one. In the bantamweight, I said Pena Harrison. That's coming. Raquel Pennington versus Norma Dumont. There's definitely potential there. Irene Aldana versus Mayra Bueno Silva. They still haven't had fights booked. Women's MMA, you get more than one. If you're a top 10 fighter and you get more than one fight in a year, I mean, you're doing good. And maybe, like Norma Dumont's been very vocal about wanting more fights, but nobody wants to take them. Everybody's waiting for ranking positions, so it's somewhat on the women these days. I said let's book Holly Holm versus Carol Hossa. Holly retired, so I was wrong. And then Yana Santos versus Miesha Tate, that ended up happening. So let's talk about this all-inclusive welterweight division. I do think it's pretty well known we'll get JDM versus Islam. It seems like everything's teed up for Sean Brady, Ian Gary. Ian Gary said he wants to stay active and fight. He could fight for the number one contender spot. It's the best fight he could get. So let's make that happen. I'd like to see Leon Edwards and Michael Morales. I think Michael Morales could use a huge step up. I want to be opposed to Carlos Prates, but I think Leon Edwards is more likely. And then Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley is happening. I say the winner of that gets Shavkat in return from injury. I think Bilal will sit a little bit to let things shake out. Maybe he does take a fight. It doesn't seem like he has a perfect one with some of the fights booked. And then I'm going to say let's do Gilbert Burns and Colby Covington, 2 vets. And then Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal, a little bit of a rebound fight after jumping into the deep end with Ian Gary. Either way, pretty solid on my champs, pretty solid on the matchmaking. And really excited to see how this welterweight division shakes out, quickly becoming one of the more intriguing divisions in the UFC. But let's talk about what happened at the Apex, man. Popping off for UFC Fight Night Vegas 106. I went 8-3 in my picks. Not a bad evening. So overall, we're at 602 wins, 305 losses, 8 no contests and draws. On the year, I'm at 118 wins, 64 losses, 1 no contest or draw. Need to be at 128 wins. So 10 more wins over losses to be where I'd like to be. We'll see how the next few cards shake out. Looking at the upcoming events, we do have Blanchfield, Barber, the last Apex event, the end of May here. Pretty solid Apex event. We'll talk about that next week on episode 100. Then we have UFC 316 in New Jersey. Merab, Sean O'Malley rematch. Really excited to see Sean come back from injury and see what he could do there. Then we go to Atlanta for the Usman Buckley. I love that we have all these location-based fight night cards. Then we have Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree, and Baku, Azerbaijan. We have Ilia Topuria taking on Charles Oliveira, UFC 317 International Fight Week in a loaded card. Then we go to Tennessee for the Derek Lewis, Taliesin Teixeira card. Not a lot of fights official on that card yet. UFC 318 in New Orleans, we get the BMF retirement fight, Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway rematch. Really excited for that one. Some pretty solid fights booked so far. We get the Neil Magny, Gunnar Nelson, Marvin Vettori, Brendan Allen beef. And then we go to Abu Dhabi for Robert Whittaker, RDR. And then UFC 319 in Chicago. Your boy's going to be there. The only bout announced so far, Dricus du Plessis, Khamzat Chimaev, I think. Yep. And then only on the schedule then is in September, the UFC Noche, UFC 320 in Guadalajara, Mexico. Stacked slate of cards this summer. A lot of bouts still to be determined there. I would expect some nice welterweights. I mean, let's look at the champions. What champions don't have fights? So, Kai has a fight. Merab has a fight. Volk doesn't have a fight. He said he'd probably fight again this year, so I would hope it'd be Movsar. Islam's going to have a fight. We don't know when yet. I'd assume maybe that. I would love it to be UFC 319, but it'll probably be in like September, October. JDM will fight him. DDP has a fight. Magomed Ankalaev waiting for Alex Pereira, trying to call out for anybody else. I do think it'll be the rematch in fall. Magomed's going to have to wait. And then who knows about John Jones, Tom Aspinall. Dana White's still confident. I'm still confident. If Dana's confident, I'm going to say that happens fall as well. Maybe in New York, Madison Square Garden card. And then Valentina just won. I would assume it's her and Zhang Wei Lei next. And then Juliana Pena is fighting. So most of the champs in action or things to be announced here fairly soon, I would assume. But man, recapping this Apex card, again, this card way over-delivered. I think I previewed it a 5 out of 10. I mean, it started popping off early. Only one prelim fight went to a decision out of the 7 fights in the prelims. And there was plenty of great performances and great battles in the main card. I'm recapping this an 8 out of 10. If you didn't get to catch it, go to ESPN Plus, rewatch it. There were some amazing performances and quite a few early prelim bouts we did not recap. We had Denise Gomes with a round 2 TKO, performance of the night, 50 G's for Denise in her win over Elise Reed. She is now a ranked strawweight. We have Luana Santos with a round 2 submission via key lock over Tainara Lisboa. Don't see many key lock submissions in the UFC, but Luana doing great in the upper weight class. She said she wants to fight again in the bantamweight division. We had Yadier de Valle with a round 1 submission via rear naked choke over Connor Matthews. Slight work for Yadier. And then Gabe Green, early adversity, finds a way in round 2 with a face crank submission over Matheus Camilo. But we're going to kick this off. The first bout of the evening, the only, I guess it was early afternoon on Saturday, the only 1-2 decision. We had Tisha Pennington with a unanimous decision over Luana Pinheiro. And Tisha's nickname is the Tiny Tornado for a reason. She stuck with her MO, lived up to her nickname's sake, and it worked out great. I mean, she did well defending takedown attempts and just did a great job staying active and attacking Luana. Luana kind of was stalking her down, loading up that big right, and every time she closed in, she'd be throwing a low kick, a side kick, an up high kick, or 3 to 4 punch combos, or I'd say even 4 to 5 punch combinations, which you love to see. A lot of people have been talking about it this year. A lot of UFC strikers will just come in 1-2, maybe 1-2-3. There's very few guys that come in with 4, 5, 6 punch combinations. Maybe the Islams, the Poiriers, the Ilia Toporias. Tisha definitely does that. And that won her round 1 pretty easily. But then in round 2, Luana started throwing and landing more. The biggest knock on her in this fight, she just needed to let her hands fly more. She's stalking down, waiting for the perfect moment, but Tisha's always moving. You got to just get in there, throw kicks of your own. But it was a very close back and forth affair in round 2. But Pinheiro did land the cleaner strikes. Then in round 3, Luana was more aggressive in getting takedowns. She had 5 attempts in the round. I think she got 3 of them. But Tisha kept getting up and landed some violent shots in the round to steal the round. She, violent. Yes, it's not a Carlos Prates 1-punch winger knockout, but she definitely was landing the more damaging and significant strikes. It was a very close fight. Most women's decisions are. But Luana didn't do herself any favors by not letting her hands fly. You'd think with how big of a skid she's on, she'd go for broke and just let it go, and her corner would motivate her to do so. But you do have to credit Tisha for making this her style of fight and doing enough to win the rounds. Past her mid-30s now, coming off pregnancy, it's not easy to do. And statistically, the stats speak for that. Tisha landed 78 total strikes, 63 of them significant. She was 0 for 2 in takedown attempts. She really wasn't going for the takedown. She was just mixing them in to keep Luana guessing and keep her away. Luana landed 46 total strikes, so quite a few less. 40 of them significant, 23 less significant. She did have 5 takedowns and 10 attempts. Again, okay, if you're going to go for takedowns, do that earlier. Tisha in her post-fight interview even said I expected her to grapple earlier, but she did get 1 minute and 42 seconds of control time. So now Tisha post-pregnancy extends her winning streak to 2. She's 2-1 since 2023. She stays at 13 in the rankings. She was calling to get higher because nobody in the women's division wants to fight someone that's lower. She wants to stay active and have an opportunity. That's just the tough life in the rankings these days. And then Luana extends her losing streak to 4. She's 1-4 since 2023, and she exits the top 15 rankings. That's where Denise Gomez took her spot. So what's next? Well, I do think Tisha deserves to fight up. I think a fight with Lupi Godinez would be a fantastic fight. And for Luana, if she's still with the UFC, how about Vanessa Demopoulos, which coming off 4-fight losing streak, you usually don't have a lot of UFC life left, but in a shallow women's MMA, I'm sure we will still see her. Moving on to the flyweights, we had Hung Sung Park with a round 1 submission via rear naked choke over Carlos Hernandez. And Park looked phenomenal after being out of the ring for a year due to his ACL injury. And he just stopped Carlos down, had great body work to open up the hands and let combos rip, which even opened up the takedown. Once he got the takedown, he was able to get Carlos's back and neck after only a few minutes had passed. Really dominant display here from Park. A brutal beatdown for Carlos to deal with. And Park only took him 17 total and 14 significant strikes with the takedown and the submission attempt. And Carlos only landed 4 total and significant strikes. And that's a pretty solid flyweight veteran. But Hyung Sung extends his winning streak to 10, 4-0 in the UFC. And Carlos starts a new losing streak. He is 2-4 since 2023. He's been active but struggling in the winning department. So I do think Park is ready for a step up. I believe Charles Johnson fits the bill. See if he's ready for top 15-like opponents. And for Carlos, I think Odie Osborne is the fight to make. Then in the prelim headliner, one of the fights I did get wrong, boy was I wrong, Jared Gordon with a round 1 knockout over Thiago Moises. And Jared was able to get whatever he wanted in this fight. He had a beautiful takedowns, seconds into the fight, a blast double, and he just boxed the shit out of Thiago. He found the mark, sat Thiago down. Thiago never got settled in, never got to really let shots fly himself. And I actually thought Thiago would be the aggressor looking for takedowns and trying to close distance, but Jared didn't even give him a chance to do so. This really is a massive showcase from Jared right now. I really think he's set up to get where he feels he belongs. He's been very vocal about thinking he's won some of these decisions. But yeah, I mean, to put it bluntly, Thiago has really kind of fucked up his prime window and has not fulfilled his potential. He's very skilled, good jiu-jitsu, good grappling, good striking. It seems like his chin's definitely a little touchy, but tough days for the skilled lightweight. I really had a lot of, I feel like Moises had a lot of promise, and it's just not translating into the octagon. But credit Jared, man. It only took him 21 total strikes, 7 significant with a takedown, a knockdown, and 2 minutes and 36 seconds of control time. Thiago only landed 11 total, 5 significant. So Jared starts a new winning streak. He's 2-1-1 since 2023. And Thiago starts a new losing streak. He's an even 3-3 since 2023. He's been active. He's going to have to definitely try to find a way to get on the winning streak. So Jared's talked about nobody wanting to fight him. I think what sets the stage here is we'll talk about Myron Santos later, but they both fought in the same card. Their timelines will match up, and Santos definitely, I think, would take this fight. This would be a good fight for him, a step up. And for Thiago, he may need some time off after the knockout. I'd love to see him fight Drew Dober. That makes a ton of sense. 2 guys looking to kind of keep their spot in the roster. But moving on to the main card, we had Melquizil Costa with a unanimous decision over Julian Erosa. Fight of the night, 50 G's. And boy, was this a fight. To open up the main card, Melky has really been on a tear in 2025. He's starting to come into his own in his prime window, and he's winning with volume, cardio, and boxing. That's exactly how he started this fight, putting Julian on his back foot and boxing the shit out of him. Really to the point he turned Julian into a wrestler in round 1. Costa landed some pretty big shots early, and Erosa looked like he was in trouble. Melky won round 1. Then round 2 was much more the same, but Julian wanted more takedowns and takedowns earlier in the round. In round 2, Julian did his best to take his hits and wear out Costa Rocky style. But with all the shots that Melky landed on Julian, he was wearing out. And I thought we might see Melky look to continue to grapple, but with all the success he was having on the feet, he decided to keep it standing. And in round 3, Julian knew he needed to get after it. And I don't know how he had so much energy, because he actually was throwing with a little bit more zip on his strikes throughout round 3 and was just like a zombie, getting punched 3-4 times, still coming forward, trying to finish Costa himself. And he attempted takedowns early but couldn't get them, so credit to Melky. But man, Arosa took so many shots, it pretty much exhausted Costa. And at the end of it, like, he could barely throw anything. You know, he was trying, but he found a way to win on the scorecards. And he won because he was a lot more precise, landed more volume, and clearly the more damaging and significant strikes. There was a photo of them in the doctor's office after the fight. Julian's face, his orbital look broke, pretty messed up. But man, what a fucking 15-minute showdown. Sad that was in the apex. Statistically, Julian landed 85 total strikes, 69 of them significant. He had 3 takedowns and 10 attempts. So again, credit Costa on the defense. He did have 3 minutes and 34 seconds of control time. And Costa landed 128 total, so 40 more total. 102 significant, about 33 more significant. And then he had 2 takedowns and 3 attempts and a submission attempt. So now Melky has that winning streak to 4. He is 5-2 since 2023. I think he's 3-0 this year. And Julian ends his 3-fight winning streak and starts a new losing streak. So what's next? Well, Melky should take some time off. He had a pretty nasty toe injury. It looked like his toe was barely hanging on. So they had to stitch that up. But he has been so active. I do think he'll fight at least one more time this year. And I think he deserves a little bit step up. So a fight with William Gomez would be a banger. And for Julian, he could square up with Joe Anderson, Brito, in a fun fight for him, Brito, and us fans. Moving on, we had Nursultan Ruziboev with a unanimous decision over Dustin Stoltzfus. And this fight was a banger as well. It put both men into deep waters. In round 1, Nursultan looked very crisp and precise with the striking. He owned the fight really wherever it went and landed the more significant shots and even landed a takedown of his own. Right at the beginning of the fight, he did get rocked a little bit, was able to kind of scramble and end up on top and recover pretty early. But Dustin landed a big shot really early. I do think the round still went to Nursultan. But then round 2, Nursultan landed more. But Dustin was able to get a takedown. Ruziboev was actually able to reverse him. And then both men landed good shots in a very close round. It was very much so back and forth. And then round 3, Dustin really dug deep and got another takedown. But Nursultan still landed some big shots while standing, some pretty solid strikes from the bottom. Although Dustin did have some top control time, he didn't do much with it. And the big takeaways for me in this fight is, yes, Nursultan is a very well-rounded and skilled striker, but he needs to have better cardio for deeper in fights, especially start getting to main event territory. He's definitely not ready for 25 minutes. He needs to be able to, if he's going to throw that volume and be as violent as he is, do it for 15 minutes. Guys like Dustin Stoltzfus aren't going away easily. And another learning thing, if we didn't already know, Dustin Stoltzfus is a dog. He had a great showing of toughness, just the ability to keep going, but he needed to trust himself and throw more. Dustin is in a tough spot after this loss. It was very close, and he had Nursultan rocked a few times, but Nursultan needs a jump. He's already 31 years old in his prime. But man, yeah, a fight like this just has such big implications for both fighters. And I think Dustin will watch that back and just wish he was a little more aggressive. Statistically, Dustin only landed 41 total, 21 of them significant. He went 2 for 5 in takedown attempts, 2 submission attempts, and 5 minutes and 11 seconds of control time. Nursultan landed 53 total strikes, so about 12 more, 35 of them significant, so 14 more significant. He went 1 for 2 in takedowns, 2 reversals, and 3 minutes and 21 seconds of control time. When I say this fight went everywhere, it literally was everywhere. Clinch, cage, on the ground, striking, kickboxing. But Ruziboev now extends his winning streak to 2. He's 4-1 since 2023. And Dustin starts a new losing streak and is 2-2 since 2023. So what's next? Well, I think Nursultan and Abus Magomedov would be a good step up for the veteran. And for Dustin, how about a matchup with Mikhail Oleksiejczuk? Moving on. In the co-main, we did lose... What was the fight we lost? Oh, the Rodolfo Bellato, Paul Craig fight. Made weight, everything was good, and it was announced just a little bit before the fight. He had like a cold sore, I guess herpes, which is contagious, so he couldn't fight. So I believe that's being rebooked for June 7th in Newark, New Jersey. So the main card took a little bit of a hit as well, losing a bigger fight. But we did have a brilliant display from the Ultimate Fighter champion, a fight I did get wrong. Myron Santos with a unanimous decision over Sadiq Youssef. And I really like Sadiq coming into this fight as an underdog. You know, Santos is so young. He hasn't had big-time opponents yet. He fought a very close decision against Francis Marshall. But both of these guys belong at featherweight. They moved up to lightweight. And Santos passed the test with flying colors, absolutely. But he looked more natural and thicker as a lightweight. Sadiq is shredded and full of muscle, but he looked really small. And he said the weight cuts have been tough, but I do think if Youssef wants to stay in the UFC, he's going to have to stick in the featherweight division. But this fight was all about Santos not wasting any energy or wasted movement. And Sadiq was just kind of moving and shaking to stay alive in there, because when he got in range, Santos was an absolute sniper and really just bullying Youssef in there. I mean, he's calm, cool, collected. Michael Bisping keeps comparing him as he's got some Anderson Silva-esque striking and just body language in there. I do tend to agree. I didn't think he would be this good, but man, again, he's just a sniper. You know, he's slowly moving a little bit, going in his motion. Youssef's moving, you know, doing so much stuff over the course of the 15 minutes. That's really going to help Santos in some of these fights. And I do think, although he fought Francis not that long ago, we did see a big step up and him leveling up his skills all around. He does train with Extreme Couture. He has a great gym. So if he keeps taking strides, the lightweight division better watch out, because he's only, I think, 25 years old. And to put this into consideration, I mean, Sadiq was a former top 15 featherweight. He had wins over the likes of Andre Fili and Alex Caceres. He's in his prime at 32 as well. And yeah, for Santos, almost being 25, he's already just so calm, cool, and collected in the octagon. Very slick striking skills and improved takedown defense. I mean, this guy's going to be a problem. But listening to the stats, I do feel like they were more lopsided than what the stats say. Because Sadiq landed 60 total strikes, 36 of them significant with a takedown. He was 1 for 3 in takedown attempts and 2 minutes and 2 seconds of control time. Myron landed 71 total, so 11 more. 40 significant, only 4 more significant, and 1 minute and 57 seconds of control time. But he easily won each round. Again, landed with precision, lots of power, a dominant display by the young lightweight. So now Myron extends that winning streak to 4. He's 3-0 in the UFC. Sadiq extends his losing streak to 3. He is 2-3 since 2022. Like I said earlier, I think the Jared Gordon, Myron Santos would be a proper timeline and a great matchup. And I think Santos would love to fight Jared this year himself. And for Sadiq, I think he should go back down to featherweight. I do expect him to probably stick at lightweight. So how about a matchup with the veteran Jim Miller? And man, was I excited for the main event. But Michael Morales had a round 1 TKO over Gilbert Burns. Performance of the night, 50 G's for the young man. And what a display it was. With how tall and lengthy he is in this division, it reminded me of Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez taking on Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. How he came in and blitzed but tired himself out. Jared somehow was able to survive and get out of the round. That wasn't the case here. And to think about how tough Jared Cannonier, Gilbert Burns is that version in welterweight. The guy's fought all the champions, has been in wars. Think about the Khamzat Chimaev fight, all the damage he took there, the JDM fight. But now we got to talk about a new contender. That's what makes the welterweight division so fun, because Michael is so tall and long in the division. And in this fight, he just stayed at range. Gilbert couldn't close distance, and he picked Gilbert apart. He put hands on him, man. And so much so that he basically had Gilbert just covering up and really just letting the judge call the fight, which is insane to me because Gilbert's not a quitter, but Michael was just piecing him up. And he didn't have him knocked out. He did have some body shots, but he covered up, went down. I thought they should have called it. He let him go back up. You know, Michael's just like, pink, 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 and then he just covered up again. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing there. And statistically, Gilbert only landed 5 total insignificant strikes. He did get a takedown, 1 for 2, but Michael got up fairly quickly. Michael landed 35 total and 33 significant strikes with 2 takedowns. Again, without having like the biggest like holy shit shot, to have Gilbert basically quit after 33 significant strikes, I mean, sheesh. So now Michael stays undefeated. He extends that winning streak to 18, 7-0 in the UFC. He moves up 4 spots in the rankings to number 8. And Gilbert extends that losing streak to 4. He drops 2 spots in the rankings to number 10. So what's next for these guys? Like I said, I think Michael and Leon Edwards would be the fight to book, assuming that Sean Brady and Ian Gary match up. Because if not, maybe Ian Gary and Michael Morales would be fun. But for Gilbert, I don't expect him to retire. We haven't heard anything about it. I'm just surprised he didn't go out on his sword and just like keep fighting and find a way. He did show up in amazing shape, but you know, he pretty much quit. So I do think we'll see him back. He's a legend. The UFC will give him more chances. That's why I like him fighting Colby Covington, who he was on his podcast saying he's overrated and Colby wouldn't want to fight him anyways. But if he's going to fight in the top, I think that's the fight to make. But again, amazing UFC Apex card. All the finishes, the prelims. Tisha Pennington. Hyung Sung Park's going to be a problem. Holy shit moment for Jared Gordon. Melky continues his winning ways in fight of the night. Nursultan Ruzaboev is showing he's going to be a force. Myron Santos, welcome to the lightweight division. And Michael Morales has the division on notice. So again, this weekend we have a week off. Then we're back to the Apex, the last Apex event until August. It is a pretty solid Apex card. It's headlined by 4th-ranked Aaron Blanchfield and 5th-ranked Macy Barber. Well, that's episode 99. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.